So guys, day 7. Sorry I mislabeled the last video day 7, but that was day 6. This is day 7. And I'm going to spend some time talking about some of my previous relationships, some of the various mistakes I made in them, and as a means so that you can, analyze yourself and figure out what's going wrong. So, hop on our time machine after my marriage ended, and I'm not going to go into details about my wife. I mean, we had a nice relationship and stuff, but we were not that compatible. I mean, it was good, and I was sad when we broke up and that kind of stuff, but what can I say? I'm going to talk to you about a relationship that really devastated me because it went through a complete cycles of valuation and devaluation. So, hop on our time machine. Let's go back to 2012. So 2012, I was before 2012, be 2010, 2010. So 2010, I'm out of my marriage, and not very happy about that. But I was a younger man. I wanted to get out there and experience what the world had to offer. And so I met a woman online. I did most of my dating online, actually, because typically I've been able to make good connections, and it's all about how you interact with the person you're talking to, right? That's what I feel. I mean, yes, of course, there are women who are very hypergamous who just want a guy with a six-pack and a Porsche, but that's not the woman I want anyway, so I don't care if she's not paying attention to me. So, again, back 2010 online, I met a woman, and she was, I always sort of go for the bookwormy glasses, secretly hot librarian look. And that was her. She was pretty easy on the eyes from the standpoint. She had a nice figure. She was divorced. She had a couple of daughters, 4 daughters, 2 at home, 2 who had left the house. And she was just a little bit older than me at the time. Now, at the time, I would have been, well, in my late 30s, and 39, 40 years old. And so we had, I talked to her for a bit, and we had got together and we went on a date. Now, our first date, there was another example of a great first date. Now, it was a little different. That first date, we met at a restaurant in a small town near where I live, which was supposed to be a coffee date, but that date turned into it was like a 5-hour date. It was crazy. We talked about everything. And not unlike the date I've mentioned to you about with the girl that I've just disillusioned with now. But it was different. We were like statically there, and I can remember on that date, we ate and we talked and we talked and we ate, dinner, coffee, dessert, I wasn't as sophisticated now, so I didn't take her out and do anything as I would have done. But I can remember getting up during that date and going to the washroom and thinking, man, this is it. It's on. Anyway, the point is that it was a good start to a relationship as well. And shortly thereafter, I pursued her. She lived in another small town north of where I lived. And she had a little house that she lived with her daughters in. And, probably by about the third time I saw her, I met her at a restaurant. This is how sappy I was. We met at a restaurant. I had dinner, and then I had hidden my guitar there because I play some songs. And I played some music for her, and, well, there it was, right? So, that was me way back when, being ultra simp man. Now, what I mean by ultra simp man is that, the things I do, you hear about on the Disney version of relationships. A man has to be romantic and chivalrous and show his emotions and all that kind of stuff. And that was me. And women kind of like that at the beginning, especially if they haven't got that. But here's the thing. If you look at the past, if this is not the kind of men they've been with, long term, they're not going to like it. And And the reality is, I don't think any woman long term actually likes it. That's why you have a lot of really frustrated men these days, because all the movies are telling them if they do this, they're going to be happy, and flowers and simping behavior and all this kind of stuff, and women are just going to be like, oh yes, that's so wonderful and romantic, thank you. But the reality is, it's not. There's a reason woman, if a woman her life has been filled with assholes, that's because that's what she really wants. No, and again, I spoke about this earlier, finding that fine balance between being distant and affectionate, and creating a circumstance where you can have a decent relationship. So anyway, I was with that woman like boom right away, and the sex was pretty good. It wasn't unbelievable, but it was okay. But when I was with her, I started to discover a few red flags, and this is important for you guys to realize this. She'd been apart from her husband for about 5 years. She'd had numerous boyfriends. The boyfriend before her was a guy who was like a retired cop who was, I'd read some of the text messages he had sent her, which were, he called her the worst things in the world, and I was shocked, I tell you, shocked. That's quoting it, Corey Wayne. Calling her all kinds of names and things like this, and, yeah, it was hilarious that, she would show them to me, and I'd be like, oh, well, he's a dick, and all this kind of stuff. And we were together almost every day for like, I'm going to say, I don't know, maybe a month. Not every day, but out of a week of 7 days, at least 4. And, I was doing things around her house, fixing things up, making things good, because I'm a fixer, man. I'm a fixer. You got problems, I'm going to fix them. I'm going to make your life so much better, and you're going to love me. And, well, we all know how that goes, right? I should have learned my lesson back then, but it's hard to change who you are when, these things I do, to be honest, they're actually what I would like people to do for me on a different level, though, because here's the thing, my life is pretty good. I mean, I run shit. I've got everything pretty much handled. I don't need people to do anything for me, but, if a woman makes me a nice meal or a fancy dessert or something, in my mind, that's about the same category of, giving. It makes me feel loved. You ever have an opportunity to read the 5 love languages? I think that my love language is gift giving, and it's gift giving in regards to like small tokens of affection, and maybe also like acts of service, because I would look at acts of service as being gifts. So they make me feel, special. So anyway, I was with this woman for that period of time, and, she started getting a little crankier and a little crankier and a little crankier until finally one day, she told me I had to leave. I think if I remember correctly, maybe it may have been a text message, or it may have been a note or something. She didn't do it in person. But I can remember driving there and knocking on her door and, real simpy behavior. Baby, take me back. What's going on? I can't believe it. And I'll tell you a funny story, actually. The night before, I had bought from a local market some chocolate-covered coffee beans. And like M&Ms. Except coffee beans in the center. Well, we had this altercation, so I got my stuff, which was there at the time, and I was leaving home. I was popping these chocolate-covered coffee beans like they were just a bag of M&Ms. Well, Jesus Christ, I couldn't sleep for 2 days. I was having, not only did I have the pain of this relationship, which had failed, but I also had now, I had like I basically overdosed on caffeine. So it was absolutely hilarious. So, that week I was just like beside myself. And that's actually way back when there was a guy named Matt Houston. He had a program, an X-Back program called X-Back. And basically what it maintained was that, go no contact, work on yourself. She's going to reach out, set a date, get together. It'll be fine. So I didn't have any other choice, because there was quite a few of them at the time. There was a few on YouTube. There's one when Michael Griswold called the 3M system. And there's actually quite a few more resources these days than there were back then. But that's what I did. I went on contact. And I'm going to suggest, now, the difference between that relationship and this one, in this particular case of this one, this girl was such a nice girl that she would have let me approach. Like, she really didn't want to hurt my feelings. She just wanted to, be able to get out when she was feeling like, when she wanted to pull away, which you have to let someone do that, right? But they're never going to do that if you manifest yourself or you manifest your behavior properly. But, because I constantly was like selling her on, let's stay in the relationship, let's stay in the relationship. I never actually isolated myself for a very long time. But in the case of this other woman, I'm going to say that it was at least 3, maybe 4 weeks. And the whole time I was thinking about her and, not very happy about the situation. And she reached out. And we got together. We had lunch at a little restaurant not far from, in our town. And the difference that day, I was a wreck. When we got together, it was like I'd been waiting for her to call. So I was a wreck. I could barely hold back my emotion. But we got together and had dinner, and I talked for a bit. And when I would talk, you get kind of sniffly when you talk. Yeah, real bitchy move. But bottom line is that we connected, we got together, and then shortly thereafter we were able to resume the relationship, and it was pretty good. Whatever, she must have made a decision inside herself that this was the kind of guy I was, because I was so much different than the other guys she had dated in the past, like assholes. I guess, and to some degree, a lot of the women I've been with have sort of come to that resolution. They're like, oh, okay, it makes sense for me to want this guy, so I'm going to want him. And it's that separation of their intellect from their emotions or their instincts. So we were together for, I'm going to say, another year. We got together, we talked about, we decided to move in, we got a place, and, my divorce finished up, and da-da-da-da-da. But, man, it was a struggle, because she would have our relationship was like a sine wave, like ups and downs, ups and downs. And the ups and downs were caused from the fact that I couldn't pull away. And so I was not good at recognizing behavior, and I was giving them too much attention, and I was saving them from all the badness. And none of that stuff had to be done. I did not have to do any of that stuff. If I had just been a little more stoic, a little more withdrawn, wouldn't have had any problems. But the reality was, she also had, I'm going to say, I suspect she had borderline personality disorder, because some of the stuff she would accuse me of, and you can Google borderline personality disorder, it's wrecked a lot of guys. And she would accuse me of some crazy shit. And I remember once at Christmas time, she flipped her lid mid-Christmas morning, because instead of me saying Merry Christmas when she gave me a present, I said thank you. She would lose her shit over me doing things like leaving the cupboard doors open in the kitchen. Just stuff like that. And the reality is that it was a combination of some of her learned behaviors, but that was her showcasing the frustration she was feeling. So the reality is that relationship ended. And you know what? It's funny. I tried to go no contact again with that relationship, because that relationship was a classic example of the Stockholm syndrome. Where you're captive, you're because she isolated me from a lot of my family and my friends, and you have this constant, you almost feel like you're in allegiance to your captor, and her hot cold cycle just made me a complete slave to her mentally. And so I tried to go no contact again at the end of that relationship, but that didn't work, because what ended up happening is that she got with another guy right away, and she came around a couple of times, because I wasn't far from where, like, the town we were living in. She just would come around and drop by. and I didn't make myself scarce. And as well, when she would drop by, I would be a vegetable, like a blubber ball. And so she walked away because there was no separation. I think I could have got her back if I had been able to completely isolate myself from her. But yeah, it's important to know, guys, when you're looking at any woman to date, look at their past. Like, this woman had had a lot of relationships. She had a lot of promiscuity. Even though she was librarian hot and all that kind of stuff, you wouldn't know it in a million years. But once I found that stuff out, I should have walked. I should have walked, because it was just a sign of so many things that... And, you know, sometimes you don't want to walk because all you want to do is get laid. And all you want, you want to have you really desire them for who they are. But it's hard. Very, very hard. And to be honest, the sex with her, it was okay. It didn't change my life. It was okay. She actually had a hard time reaching climax, which really apparently wasn't my fault, because I've had women since then who are just can't get enough. But yeah, that was, and there was some extra complexity in that relationship with my ex-wife, who called the children's aid for no good reason. Of course, they're always going to believe the wife, and so I lost my children in that period of time. And my children know the story now, so it's all good. But man, what a clusterfuck. Anyway, so yeah, just a little reflection there on a previous relationship. And over the next few videos, I'm going to reflect on a couple of the other relationships I've had, and so you can get an idea of, where I've been. You figure I would learn my lesson, absolutely. But I'm doing this so you guys can really analyze where you are and say to yourself, gee, maybe I should not do that. Because believe me, that's something I should have said to myself about 5 years ago. Thanks, guys.